Welcome to tonight's installment of the new SCI-Arc Cinema Series, a series of screenings of films relating to architecture, technology, visual culture, and music. These things are free and open to the public, first Tuesday of every month during the school year. My name is Michael Stock. I'm the host. I curated the series. I'm a professor, which teaching here at school, most of you know, I recognize most of your faces. And actually, one of the first courses I taught here was on the history of punk, and we watched two of your films. We watched the First Decline film and Suburbia, of course, which are mandatory for your punk education. Tonight's film is one of my favorite films, not only about punk, but also favorite films about Los Angeles, Decline of Western Civilization Part 3, released in 1998 and directed by my guest, the film's director, Penelope Spheeris. So please welcome her.
Thank you.
Penelope is often referred to as a rock and roll anthropologist and most recently builder. You've been directing films for, I'm not sure how many years now.
I'm not either.
Since?
Well, I mean, I was in film school in the early 70s, so that long, yeah. The Academy just restored my student films. They went and found them, so they made a program of 8 of short films that I did from way back then, yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Very cool. Let's see, the series of Decline Western Civilization films were recently reissued on DVD and have found an all-new audience and been getting talked about a lot. I think it's important and interesting to point out that I think 2015 was when the box set came out. Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait,
so
15?
2015?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that light's a killer, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I know.
You got the good side, man. Okay, go ahead.
Before that, the films were only available on VHS and were these prized collector's items that weirdos like myself who collect ephemera, records, VHS would hold on to these things. And so it's nice that all 3 of the films were released as a series, as like and given to a broader audience. Penelope has directed a number of fiction films since then. Suburbia was the first fiction film that you directed, and a punk film that came out of her work on the First Decline film. Boys Next Door from 1984, Dudes in 1987. In 1991, she directed the breakout comedy Wayne's World for Paramount, and a film which I've seen in other interviews you've described as having good and bad because of the sort of films that you were offered after that film came out. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that later on. I feel like usually of all your films, it's the first film in the Decline of Western Civilization series that gets the most attention. I think it's a lot has to do with because of the fact that the bands and the personalities in the film have gone on to become sort of the mythic figures. I mean, punk celebrities very much. And this film tonight is less about the bands, less about band members, and more about punks on the streets, fans of punk, and more of a social film.
Yeah, more their lifestyle.
Yeah, at least as much a social film or a film about social issues as about music. And that's why I thought it was important to screen it tonight. So I guess I was curious, at this point in 2019, do you have a favorite of the films?
Oh, Decline 3 is my favorite of all the films I've made.
Yeah. And why your favorite?
I think because it is, it's got some meaning to it, you know. It's got some significant messages in it, and as time has gone on, you know, I made it 20 years ago, but as time has gone on, the homeless situation has gotten worse and worse, and people have become more and more divided about it. But you know, when you watch this film, I think it's extremely emotional, probably because it's kids out there, but I mean, old people are homeless too. But anyway, I just like it because it's a very serious film. I'll warn you right now. And when you get finished watching this movie, be careful because you're going to be really depressed. And that's one reason why I couldn't get it released. I remember sitting in my agent's office showing it to him and trying to say, hey, can you help me sell this film and get it put out? No, I can't. It's too depressing. So.
And this is, I mean, what, several years after Wayne's World would have made you such a, someone you could go and get a film made.
Well, I couldn't, when I did Wayne's World, I couldn't just do any movie I wanted to do. You know, I could only get comedies financed. I had a whole stack, and I still have them, of scripts that have never been made, because after I did Wayne's World, it was like, nobody trusted me to do the more serious films, which I know I can do, and I proved it with Suburbia. And, but I had to just, you know, either not work or direct Beverly Hillbillies and the Little Rascals and Black Sheep, you know. So I always say, men in the film director world, they kind of get to do the movies that they want to do and love, and then they get to make the money. But as a woman, you kind of got to pick one or the other, you know. So I couldn't make the movies I wanted to make, so I just took the money.
Right.
Yeah, I know, it kind of sucks, but what, I could have ended up with nothing, you know?
Yeah. I guess before we dig into too much stuff about film, I wanted to first talk a little bit about music and ask you what was your introduction to punk? Like,
Well, I had a
what
film company. Yeah, I have a film company, first one here in LA, I believe. It was called Rock and Reel, and I did music videos before MTV. And I was standing in an equipment house one day, and I had given up on music because it was all like the Bee Gees and the Doobie Brothers back then on the radio, and I didn't even listen anymore, you know. But, I mean, I shoot the videos, but whatever. And some guy in the equipment house said, hey, have you heard the Sex Pistols? And I said, no, what? And so then I heard the Sex Pistols, and I just went, okay, my world opened up, and I started going to all the punk clubs, and I felt that it was just a movement that needed to be documented. I just felt it instinctively, it was extremely important.
So you didn't have a feature in mind, it was more documenting the scene as it was.
No, I was going to make a feature film. You know, I told these guys, like, I didn't have any money, and how am I going to make the movie? And so my friend said he had a friend that wanted to make a porno movie, and would I direct it? And I said, no, but could we take him to a germ show? And because I want to do a movie about that. And so luckily, Jeff Prettyman, God bless him, he passed away recently. How you doing? And so, you know, he said, fine, this is some weird stuff. So yeah, let's make that movie. And I told him I could do it on Super 8 for $12,000. And ended up, we switched over to 16 millimeter, and it cost $120,000, and he still was cool with it. So that's how that happened.
Wow, and I mean, at that point, punk would not have been getting any radio play, probably.
No, I mean, Rodney Bingenheimer back then a little bit would, you know, play it,
yeah.
But he had to fight for it. So it wasn't popular, you know, at all. And but that didn't matter to me because I listen to music, and I like the music, I love the music, but I also really love the lifestyle and the fact that punk rock back then, in its early days, was just dead set on tearing down tradition and changing things. And so that's what I liked about it, is that it was ready to change, you know, okay, no more love songs, no more guitar solos, no more rock stars, no more of that traditional stuff that music had been forever.
Right. And how did your relationship to the music change as you started to make a film about it?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm going to switch that around a little bit
Okay.
if you don't mind, Michael, because as I look at it in retrospect, okay, in the first decline, that wasn't all punk music, if you ask me, you know? It just kind of got thrown into the same bucket because those were the bands that were playing when I could get my cameras, you know, and start shooting. But, I mean, even though Claude Bessie with Catholic Discipline had a very strict punk ethic going, I don't think Catholic Discipline was a punk band. I think, you know, it was very lyrical and very, you know, kind of musical, and it wasn't like Black Flag and Circle Jerks, you know, and Germs. So, I don't know, I mean, now, I don't know, I feel like punk rock's been homogenized and bastardized and misused, and I don't even think people understand it anymore, you know?
Right. I mean, we're so far away from
What it started out to be.
started out to be.
Yeah. No,
So-
the human beings have corrupted it, you know, just like they do everything.
How did, related question then, how have the punks' relationship to you change after the film or films started coming out?
Are you videotaping me, skate girl? Uh-huh, you putting on makeup? What are you doing?
Oh, no,
You're videotaping me? Did she work for the show? No? How do I look?
you look amazing.
Cool, thanks.
Glasses, I like the whole,
You like the whole look?
yeah, I like the
Right on. What are you gonna do with the video, bitch? All right, just kidding. Go ahead. I don't care. I wanted to see if you guys could laugh, you know? She's adorable. Go ahead.
How, I mean, you've made these important films sort of chronicling the punk scene in the 70s and then in the 90s, and I'm wondering, I mean, the punks know who you are. How has their attitude towards you changed?
I don't know. I mean, and honestly, I've learned not to care what people think about me. I think if I could suggest it, please try not to care what anybody thinks about you because it doesn't have anything to do with you. So, you know, I mean, the film, when I first released or didn't even get a release, when I first showed The First Decline, it was at the Writers Guild, and this woman stood up and she goes, "How dare you glorify these heathens?" And I thought, oh man, did I screw up here, you know? But it recently got inducted into the Library of Congress National Film Registry. So the point is, if you believe in something, just do it even if you get the criticism, you know? Because I've been criticized a lot, and I don't really care, you know? I don't go and do the whole social media thing, though, because it's a pain in the ass, you know?
I agree.
Yeah, it just turns to shit no matter what you do, so I forget it.
So I mentioned, you know, these films were only available on VHS for decades before coming out on DVD. What was the, and I think the effect was to deepen the kind of the mystique, the cult value of the films and of you as a filmmaker, I think. Can you tell us, like, what took so long to put it out digitally?
Oh, to get the films put out? Mm-hmm. Oh, because I like to believe that I am true to that original punk set of values, you know, which is do it yourself and stop being a commercial asshole and don't exploit, you know, I mean, I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to do that. And my daughter finally, like you say, in 2015, she said, "Mom, you got to put these movies out because everybody wants to see them." And I'm like, I feel like you know, I don't feel right about doing it. You know, I'm selling out. That's the word. Yeah, I'm selling out. She goes, "No, you're not. People really want to see them." So my daughter Anna Fox is the one that made me do this. You know, and I'm glad I did it because you know what? It was a burden. You know, it was a burden having people bugging me for them and everything. Bless you.
Yeah. Can you address the origins of Decline Part 3? I mean, almost 20 years after, well, after you started the first film, you returned to punk, and I was wondering
Here's what
what
happened.
took you back?
Here's what happened, Michael. I was working. I had done Wayne's World and the goofy comedies, and then I did Black Sheep with Chris Farley, which was actually a pleasure, and then I did a movie with the Weinsteins called Senseless, and it was with Marlon Wayans and David Spade, and they really paid me a lot of money. It was a good script to start with, but then they kept rewriting it and making me shoot these scenes that didn't work. And I was starting to go nuts, I swear to God, because you try to argue with the Weinsteins, okay? So I would, get on these arguments with Bob Weinstein about why the film was not working because they were rewriting it. And then I was actually losing it. And then just to cap it off, my friend said, would you like to go to Burning Man? And I went there, and I was drinking a beer and pitching a tent, and these girls slipped some acid in my beer. And I didn't know what was happening, but I started hallucinating, and all kinds of weird shit, like mountains with neon signs on them and people like having an orgy, all this weird stuff. And anyway, I know it's a freaky story, but I cracked. I swear to God, I cracked. And I was up all night tripping and never figured out until later what happened. And then I just packed up my van. I left my friends there, and I said, I'm not going to be in Hollywood anymore, and that's it. And I'm going to go make the Decline 3. Yeah, so it was because of an overdose of acid.
Wow.
Should I not tell this to these kids?
It's okay.
Don't take it, you guys. It's really, honestly, okay.
Suburbia, of course, which was early 80s, features homeless punks squatting, but in a fictional form. And so that film kind of prefigured what you would be then later
Isn't that weird?
discovering all over again. Yeah.
When I saw the punks in '97 walking down Melrose in a pack, they looked just like the Suburbia poster. A narrative picture that I wrote, I can't even calculate the numbers right now, but 20, 30 years earlier. They all knew the movie, they all knew the first Decline. They all looked the same, as you will see when you see the movie. And I can still to this day not figure out whether they emulated the movie or I saw the future. I don't know what happened, but I don't think I had dropped any acid around that time. But, they're very similar. Suburbia and Decline 3 are the same movie if you look at them closely.
Yeah.
One is written as a narrative piece and one is a documentary many years later. It's freaky.
Yeah. Were you, when you were shooting, the first Decline movie and Suburbia, were the homeless punks already on your radar, or was it something you were sort of thinking of more as like,
That's a really good question. That's probably the smartest question I've ever been asked. That's really good. This guy's cool. I like that. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. It's not like when I was doing Suburbia, they were... No, I think I made it up. Yeah, I think I did. I think I made it up because what I was trying to say is that these young people, oftentimes teenagers, were disenfranchised and disowned by their families, but they still had a lot of love and a lot of heart, and they got together and made their own family, and they moved into that, basically it was a squat in Suburbia, So, yeah, I think I did make it up, yeah. But a lot of stories in Suburbia came from real life situations, like the wild dogs. There really was a company that was a guard dog company that let the dogs loose, and the dogs were attacking people, and this is a news story. And yes, all those houses that were all destroyed were taken away by eminent domain by the county government because they were going to put a freeway through there, moved all the families out, never put the freeway in. you know, and they were just sitting there for years, yeah. So I just kind of put all the news stories and my own personal experiences together. You know, I came from a very punk upbringing, if you don't mind me saying so. I mean, it was just like total chaos in my house at all times growing up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How different was the punk scene, to your eyes, of the 90s as from the punk scene of the 70s? I mean, I'm thinking about this in blocks of 20 years, you know? I mean, it was 20 years ago, the film we're about to see tonight, but 20 years before that was your introduction to the first wave of punk. So it must have been, how did it strike you?
It must have striked me pretty hard because I did a movie about it, you know, and there was a resurgence of, you know, a lot of local punk bands all over here in Orange County and out in Purdue, as we used to call it, San Bernardino County. And so there were all this, there was a resurgence of the true punk, you know, lifestyle and ethic back then. There was, and I kind of caught that little window, which I'm very happy about, because right after that, you know, all of a sudden the world became digitized and everything got sort of, you know, all mixed up, and now it's not very well defined, you know.
Yeah. I mean, this film is like an underground, like, it's still the underground side of punk in the 90s. I mean, at that same time, we had Green Day and Rancid, and I mean, the MTV version of punk, you know, punk at the malls. But this film is still showing.
Because there's a guy in the very first scene here, you know, when it opens up, you know that, where he goes, "Yeah, Green Day, man." Yeah. But yeah, it was, there were these, bands that became extremely commercialized and extremely successful and, you know, whatever. But, you know, in a way they weren't, they're not truly punk rock, you know. They're like a morphed kind of version. And I don't know, you know, it kind of, I remember back then it would, you know, piss us all off to think that people would call that punk rock, you know. I knew something was wrong when I was at CV, or it was called Thrifty Drugstore back then. And there was a guy with a green mohawk in line. You never saw that back then, you know. It was like 25 years ago or something. And I said, "Oh, hey, hi, man, I made The Decline of Western Civilization." And he looked at me like, "What?" You know? And I went, "Oh my God." He doesn't know anything about that, and yet he looks like that. And that's when I noticed it was all just becoming bastardized.
Yeah. Yeah, a number of critics at the time and since then have commented that this film, in a way, signals the end of punk.
Yeah, they told me that The Decline, too, was the end of hair metal, too. I heard that one. Yeah, the film that killed hair metal. I'm like, you know, somebody had to do it. I was like,
How much of Decline 3 is sort of a continuation of the first film, and how much of it is a contradiction?
Oh, that's a complicated question. See, when I started making the movie, I just thought, oh man, this is going to be so much fun because there's all these bands now and all these great people that think like I do, and I'm going to have so much fun. And you know what? It took a dive, because if you're making a documentary, you got to let it take you on a trip, you know? And that's what happened. Was I was going to the clubs, I was shooting the bands, but I was also getting to know these people, and I was getting to know their stories, and I became much more interested in their backgrounds and why they were in the situation that they were in than I was in the music. Because the music, to be honest with you, it's kind of like the same music as it was back then, you know? I mean, Naked Aggression, when you hear Kirsten, the singer, with her great lyrics, and I mean, they're great bands, you know? But you don't hear them on the radio today, you know what I mean? Of course, you don't hear the first, well, yeah, you do. I don't know, doesn't matter, screw the radio. Yeah.
Part of the fun, but I think also contentious, ongoing conversation punk fans have had about the films is the question of what bands didn't get included, who should have been included, who shouldn't have been included. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that issue with this film.
Yeah,
from a
I like to
2019
tell those
perspective.
people, why the hell didn't they make a movie, you know? Let them make their own movie. You don't like the bands in my movie, make your own movie, you know? I shot the bands that happened to be playing on the weekend that I had a camera, the bands that I liked, and the people in the bands who had interesting stories and good interviews, you know? Would I do something different in the first Decline? Yeah, I wish I would have shot the Weirdos and the Plugs and the Screamers. Tomato do plenty. Yeah, I wish I would have shot a lot of bands that I didn't shoot. But see, the thing is, back then nobody was doing it, you know? I mean, I was really the only one around here. I mean, there were people in, obviously, London and New York shooting punk, but hardly any footage, you know. So somehow my film came to be the definitive, you know, version of what was happening back then. I'm glad I was able to shoot it, you know, even though it's not pure punk. It's really not. It's like there's a couple of art bands in there, you know. There's Catholic Discipline is kind of an art band, and I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, when I've taught the punk class, you know, I always sort of start with the, you know, week one is the history of punk in the UK, and I'll show maybe Don Lett's punk rock movie, and then week two is punk in New York, and then week three is punk in LA, and showing those early films like Decline, like Don Lett's punk rock movie is interesting because yeah, you get to see Catholic Discipline right next to X, right next to Black Flag. I mean, there's, you know, you're inside.
X isn't a punk band,
Yeah.
in my mind.
Yeah.
You know, did they say they were punk? I can't believe they said that. That cracks me up. But, you know, anyway, what'd you say?
Oh, just, I guess the point is, those, you know, the films that were made at the time, you were right in the middle of it. You didn't have the outsider's perspective. You were shooting what was all around, as opposed to
Well, that brings up
looking
a good
back.
point, too, because all these people here, I think, are artists, and I think if I can suggest, it really does help not to get too much information, you know? I don't watch movies today. I mean, I'm gonna make a couple more documentaries, but I don't wanna watch all the kind of confusiated crap out there, you know? You kind of have to keep your perspective clean. And back then, that's what I tried to do, and I think it worked, you know? It's a personal film, and you know, when I ask people always say, how did you come up with the questions for the movies, you know? Well, I just asked questions that I wanted to know. I didn't ask questions that I thought everybody else wanted to know, you know?
How do you feel that your films have helped shape punk history?
Well, I mean, just the fact that it was documented to a degree, you know. Let's pretend the first Decline didn't exist, or this film, if they didn't exist, you know. What would young people today know about that movement? I mean, they maybe could read a book about it or look at some photos, but, you know, there was a while when, like, kids would think that a torn-up T-shirt with this or that all over it came from Hot Topic. No, it didn't come from Hot Topic, you know. It didn't come from Target. It came from way back then, you know. So I think it's great that the films exist just as a way of documenting history, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. The true punks in Decline that we're about to see are the ones who were living, you know, according to the punk ethics of the 1990s, are these kids living off the grid, living on the streets, and, you know, concerned with authenticity, I think. And I feel like that's something that
Thank
you
you.
share.
You got it.
So.
He gets it, you know. And I always say that, either you're punk or you're not, you know, either you get it or you don't. And it's not about a look at all, you know? And I can always spot the posers. You know? And there's sure a lot of them, you know? But it has to do with, like you said, the ethics and the values and being an honest person and being kind and having good intentions. And yeah, it looks chaotic and it looks violent and it looks nuts, you'll see. But, you know, at the end of the day, these people are what I consider to be fine human beings. And that's the way I want to be. And that's the way I live my life, you know. And I could give a crap about going to Hollywood parties and what my image is and blah, blah, blah. I don't care, you know.
Bigger question, but a question that's, you know, that this film brings up. What responsibility do you think a city like Los Angeles has to its homeless? And how is that responsibility changed from
All right, hold
90
on now.
Okay, one at a time? Okay.
Do one at a time, baby.
They're both big.
All right. Because that's complicated shit.
Okay, all right.
What does a city like Los Angeles have as an obligation to the homeless community? Here's the problem, guys. There's too many people in the world and there's not enough money. Okay? So what are you going to do? You know, everybody's fighting to get the same money to make the city nice, you know. Everybody has good intentions. There was a Fox executive that I knew when I did one of them movies, and she lives down by the river in a place over there, and all of her neighbors have guns, and except for her, she said. I'm not sure I believe her, but they all get together on a certain day, and they go down to the river, and they go and they start pushing around the homeless people and showing them their guns and telling them to get the hell out. You know, I mean, that's just like, that's just nuts. I don't know what to do about it. The city of Los Angeles definitely should do whatever they can to help the homeless. And above and beyond that, which I think is a worse problem, is the mental illness problem. Because you can be homeless on the street, a lot of them enjoy it, and you know, honestly, they would rather be there. But some of them are there and they're mentally ill and they hallucinate and they see shit that ain't there. Oh, I did that. No, they see shit that ain't there and then they go and hurt somebody, you know? And so that's where the money should go. So I just walked myself through the answer. The money should go toward helping the mentally ill. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And I guess how has the issue changed between making this film in '99 and now, do you think?
How's what changed?
How Los Angeles deals with its homeless. Has it changed?
Well, the fact of the matter is I mean, I don't know what the number was back then of how many people were homeless, but it's like 400,000 now or something. It's a huge number of people who are homeless in Los Angeles. So it's changed in volume, for sure, and it's changed in people's attitude. I think back 20 years ago, people were a little more compassionate and tolerant, and now, I mean, they're you know, swinging their sharpshooters around trying to intimidate them, you know? So it's changed drastically, you know? It's very sad.
Are you still in touch with any of the people, any of your subjects, people that are in decline number 3?
Yeah, Kirsten Patches is her name. She's the lead singer in Naked Aggression. She's a true punk in that she is a teacher down in Compton. She does middle school teaching in Compton. And We're in touch with her. We're in touch with Gizmo, who is the drummer in The Resistance. We're in touch with Eyeball, who is the guy with the mohawk cooking the eggs, like Darby did in the first Decline and Ozzy did in the second Decline. And I'm in touch with my boyfriend, who's here. I met him on this movie 20 years ago. We've been together almost every day since. Yeah. I met my boyfriend on Decline 3. He was a gutter punk. Yeah.
So I should point out to you in the room here that the film we're about to see, there are multiple mediums that were used. Now antiquated and perhaps forgotten. High 8, Super 8, digital video, 16 millimeter.
You are so good, Michael.
Am I missing anything?
No, I don't know, but you're damn good, man. This guy he's pretty good.
I wanted to point it out because
How did you figure that out? Did you read it, or did you just look at the film?
I mean, looking at it, I was...
You could tell.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, what my whole idea was to use every format that I could. So I shot video and I transferred it to film. I shot film and transferred it to video and then went back. I mean, that was part of the experiment. And that's kind of punk, you know? I actually kind of used whatever was there, you know?
I mean, a lot of critics don't talk about that part of the film, and I find it really interesting because it's shortly before all these formats start disappearing and we become the monoculture with the
what
monomedia.
happened? Yeah, what happened right after that was HD was born, and you know, I shot a movie with Sharon and Ozzy in 2000. What year was that? 99. The Ozfest movie it was just like if I would have waited a year, this movie would have been in 2K high def, okay? But it wasn't really happening for me anyway at that time. So yeah, I shot We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll with Sharon and Ozzy, and it never got released because she didn't get the music rights cleared, unfortunately, and I worked on it for 3 years. I was heartbroken it never got released.
Wow, so still no, in the horizon, will it happen, or?
Will it ever happen?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's a long story, but it's a really good movie. And again, I think it's a document of a time, you know?
Yeah.
The Ozfest in '99 was a pretty amazing thing. I mean, just to have had the experience to go to 30 different cities and film all those bands was, that was reward enough. You know, I didn't get paid to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Looking at those counting the unseen film, I think it's interesting to think about how you sort of oscillate between, you do punk and then metal, then punk, then
I know, it's
metal.
true, huh?
So
Yeah.
this would indicate to me that the next film would be a punk film. So I guess that would, my question is, do you have another punk film
I'm going to
in
do
you?
the Decline 4, and actually we've already shot some stuff. But then we started building a house, okay? Yeah, see here, I'm in the, how's that for a transition? We started building a house 3 years ago, and I packed up all of my Decline footage, Decline 4 footage, and I put it in storage, and we built this house in Laurel Canyon. And I learned how to build a house all on my own. How about that? Yeah, we had to put like sometimes 20-foot pylons. We had to put like 2x2 grade beams, and we had to do this shear wall that almost killed me. LADBS is really fun to deal with. So are you ready, guys? LADBS. I call it the Department of BS.
I guess maybe a question to close on, bigger question about punk. Why is everyone still so goddamn interested in punk?
Are they? Are you guys, hold on. Who's interested in punk? Raise your hand. Okay, there's some honest people there. There's some people lying. No, just kidding.
I mean,
a few people are interested in punk, from what I could see, because I can't see shit right now.
There's different levels of interest. I am struck by how many art openings in our arts district here.
Well, you know
are
what I
punk
think you're
exhibits.
observing is there is a resurgence of exploiting punk, you know? And I think, it's like, why do that? The whole reason for the movement in the first place, you know, was to destroy all that stuff. Why exploit it? Why try to make money off of it? It's just so wrong, you know? I've screwed up and got interviewed for this show coming up here, that punk show that Epix is doing. But I mean, the minute you start trying to intellectualize it, and the minute you try to exploit it, you're not dealing with it. You know what I mean? It's hard to explain, but it's a lifestyle that's pure, and when you start trying to morph it into something commercial or, you know, write some kind of intellectual thing about it, it starts to fall apart. Yeah. I mean, people, you know what's right and wrong. You know what I mean? Everybody knows what's right and wrong. Sometimes they just do shit that's wrong, you know. But you know what's right. So you just have to follow that. You have to follow your heart and do a Spike Lee movie, do the right thing, yeah. Okay.
All right. I think that's a good lead into the film.
Okay, well, yeah, just get ready to be depressed, okay? I'm so sorry.
And
you
please,
guys, thank you for coming out.
Yeah, please give Penelope thanks for coming by.